Recently I was sitting around with a bunch of friends and we're watching some children jump up and down on the trampoline. And one of the children jumped up and then they jumped down and they landed very, very poorly, literally got bent in half, and collectively all the adults groaned because we all knew that if that happened to us, we'd be spending 2 or 3 weeks in hospital. The child got up and bounced as if nothing ever happened. Indeed, there's benefits to being supple. And a sad reality, as we all know, is that as we age, we tend to lose that flexibility and that mobility. What I'm about to demonstrate and guide you through is a group of exercises that you can do to help reclaim that flexibility. And there's other benefits associated with doing that as well. For example, we know that when you stretch a muscle, it relaxes a muscle. And many of us experience a lot of muscular tension. And secondly, and get this, there's some evidence now that by stretching a muscle, you actually produce an analgesic effect. So it means that it can help with soreness. Let's check it out. There are many misconceptions when it comes to stretching. One of them is that before you exercise, you should always stretch. The latest evidence suggests that that's not necessary at all. In fact, it doesn't help with injury prevention, which is interesting. But more importantly, from our benefit, that is, you don't need to do a thorough warm-up before you stretch. And what that means is that any time of the day is a great time, even if you have just a few free minutes, to do some stretching exercises. If you're serious about improving your flexibility, then after exercise when the muscles are thoroughly warmed up is probably the ideal time, but you can do these exercises any time of the day that you do have a few free moments. So let's check them out. And I have my friend here, Tish. Thanks for helping, Tish. And she's going to be helping me to demonstrate some of the exercises that you can do. We're going to start with the top, and essentially we're going to work our way down. And so the neck gets the first go. Now obviously many people experience a lot of neck pain and tension, and so these exercises can be used to take the neck through its range of motion. Our first exercise, Tish, if I get you to, it's just going to be chin into your chest and then looking back. And then you can repeat that process. Now many people say, how far should I go with it? Well, if you hear a snapping sound, you know you've gone too far. No, in truth, if you feel tension in the muscle, that's appropriate, but you shouldn't feel pain. So you want to keep it within that pain-free threshold. Okay, so there's the first exercise. Second one this time is from side to side, just bringing your ear close to one shoulder and then down to the other shoulder. And that's excellent. And then our third activity is taking the the neck through its range of motion in this plane. So it's just looking from side to side. You know, the neck is a remarkable piece of engineering. It has the ability to flex and move in 3 different directions, front and back, side to side, and then in this plane also. However, it doesn't cope well with doing all of those simultaneously. And I'm not going to demonstrate because I don't want to be wearing a neck brace for the next few days, but you may have seen people doing big wide circles with their necks. That's actually not a great way to go. You're best exercising the neck in those 3 planes separately. The last exercise, neck exercise, that I'd like to demonstrate, because so many of us sit in front of our computer for so many hours a day, is we slump with our heads forward. And what I'll get you to do, Tish, is to take your fingers and just push your chin back. And essentially it's pushing your head not into a forward position, but into a more upright position, which is where it should be at. And when you do this exercise, and I'd encourage you to follow along as we're doing this, it will feel alien, it feels wrong, but in fact for many people this is the place that it should be. It's just that we've learnt these bad habits. So there's some exercises for the neck. The next exercise is for the back of the arm. And I'll get you just to turn a little bit if you can, Tish. And just raise your hand up high. That's it, hand behind your head now. And then reach over with the other hand and just pull the elbow, across behind the head. And you'll feel the stretch in these muscles here. And then you can change sides. And what I find fascinating about this exercise is, and you may find this yourself, some people will be quite flexible in one direction, but then on the other side, they don't have the same degree of mobility. Thanks, Tish. If you can turn around for a moment. I find this in myself, that one side I'm quite flexible and the other I'm not. And that's simply because when I go surfing, which I don't do near enough, I actually do my wetsuit up in that particular direction. And what that demonstrates is that even if it's not that regular, just doing it habitually, twice a week if you can, makes a world of difference to your level of mobility in that region. Okay, we can extend that exercise, so if you can just adopt that stretching position once again for us, Tish. This time with your feet shoulder width apart, and then just slowly leaning to the side, and you'll feel the stretch will go not just in the tricep muscles, but all these, for the anatomists amongst us, the latissimus dorsi, or the lat muscles. And that produces a good stretch along there. All right. The next stretch we're going to do, and I'll get you to spin around, is going to target these muscles here. These are referred to as the trapezius and the rhomboids, and these create, a lot of people get a lot of tension in these muscles because we sit for so many hours with our shoulders slumped over. You can just spin around, Tish. What I'll get you to do is just to hold your hand out in front, take your elbow, and just bring that arm across your body. And it actually feels nice to do because most people have quite a significant portion of tension in that area. We can change sides. Now, one question is, how long should we hold a stretch like this? Now, if you're working on the neck, as we did just previous, you can change again when you feel you need to. You don't need to hold it for a long period of time. It's more about just taking the joint through its range of motion. It's not as if you're officially trying to increase your flexibility in that region. But for some of these exercises, and particularly as we move down to the lower body, it's recommended that you hold the stretch for somewhere between 10 to 30 seconds. And I'd suggest, if you can, 30 seconds is probably ideal. There's some evidence for the older people, even up to 60 seconds might be appropriate. And then if you change sides, obviously you have about 30 seconds doing it on that, and then you can change again. We suggest that you stretch each muscle about 3 to 4 times. The opposite muscle to these trapezius and rhomboids on our upper back are the chest muscles. And for many people who experience rounded shoulders, there's an imbalance between the strength and the flexibility of these two muscle groups. So I'm going to show you an exercise now that essentially stretches the opposite muscles to the one that Tish has just demonstrated. You need a wall to do this one. And essentially if you put your hand on the wall, and all you do is now turn away from that hand, and you should feel the stretch along the pectoralis major muscles, or the chest muscles. And then obviously you would turn around, and you don't need to do this at the moment, Tish, but you'd turn around, repeat it on the other side, and if you did your 30 seconds 3 to 4 times, you've got a nice balance between the chest and the upper back. Now for the next exercise, before we move to the floor, we're coming down to the lower back region. I'll get you just to stand with your feet shoulder width apart. Very simple, hands on your side, across your chest, and then just rotate to one side, hold the stretch for 10 to 30 seconds, and then rotate back to the other side. You can see you could easily do this in just a few moments at your office desk when you needed a bit of a break. All right, next exercise, we're going to need to move to the floor. So now that we've performed some stretches for the upper body, the next set of stretches will target the midsection region. And Tish, I'll just get you to adopt a position on your hands and knees, and people, you will never guess the name of this stretch. It's referred to as the angry cat. And what I'll get you to do, Tish, is just to raise your back, arch your spine, that's it, and you should feel a nice big stretch right throughout both the upper end and lower back. Then to relax that stretch, I want you to go down and try and sink your lower back towards the ground. Very good. Now, about 80% of people experience some sort of lower back pain in their life, and getting a good balance between strength and strengthening that region can go a long way to alleviating many of those concerns. Tish, for our next stretch, if you can just lie on the ground, and this is a favourite position for many, one of the favourite exercises because we get to lie there and actually do nothing. But I'll get you to put your elbows just underneath your shoulders, keeping your hips on the ground. The objective here is to stretch the abdominal muscles. And if you just raise your shoulders up, you should feel a nice stretch here throughout the abdomen. This is a really good exercise and feels lovely after you've done some abdominal muscular strengthening activities. And so that's the abdominal stretch. Okay, Tish, I'll now get you to move up into a seated position. Now, for so many of us, because we spend so many hours a day in a sitting position, we get a lot of tension in our hip and thigh regions. So this first activity, I'll get you just to straighten one leg, put this foot on the opposite side of that knee, and then just bring the knee into the chest. Perfect. Now what you should be feeling here is a stretch down the buttock region in your bottom, which is referred to as the gluteus muscles. You can change the legs. And this is an easy exercise that you can do even in a seated position. So your chair at work, for example, take a few moments to do this one. Many people have a lot of tension in that area, and it can make a big difference just doing this on a semi-regular basis. Okay, now last activity, Tish, I'll get you to straighten your legs out. And this targets the muscles in the back of the legs, which are the hamstring muscle group. And I'll just get you to lean forward, and you should feel the stretch down here on the back of the thighs. Now, if you find that you experience a bit of pain or tension behind your knees, then what you can do is just take your legs off lock. That's ideal, so that you should reduce the tension from that region. You'll feel it more in the hamstring. So, to go with the flow of working, stretching equal and opposite muscle groups, the muscles, this is targeting the muscles on the back of the thigh. Now we're going to need to stand up to stretch the muscles on the front of the thigh, which are the quadricep muscles. So now we've stretched the back of the thigh, now we're going to stretch the front of the thigh. And to do that, Tish, I'll get you to get up against the wall so that you've got a nice stable platform, because we're going to go into one leg here. What I'll get you to do is to take the instep of your foot, that's it, and just bring it up towards your bottom. And the area we're targeting here in the stretch where you should feel it is in the front portion of the thigh. If you don't feel it there, what you need to do is to push your knee back further and your hip forward. That's correct. Now, I know that many of us have knee problems and it's difficult for us to bend to this extent. So a modified version of this stretch, we can make use of a table. So Tish, I'll get you to turn around, and if you can once again steady yourself, but this time just put your foot on the edge of a bench or a low table if that's appropriate. And once again, if you don't feel enough stretch in that particular region, then what you need to do is push your hip forward and your knee back. Very good. Okay, those are the quadricep muscles being stretched. Another stretch that targets an area near to this, which we refer to as the hip flexors, is I'll get you to adopt a position 1 foot forward, 1 foot back. And all we do here is we, bending the front leg, keeping the back leg straight, push the hips forward. That's correct. And you should feel a stretch here more along the front of your thigh. And once again, because so many of us spend so much time bent at this point because we sit so much, a lot of people have a lot of tension in that area, and that can actually cause lower back pain in its own right. Our second last stretch, we're getting close to the end, Tish, is to adopt a shoulder width position with our feet, and we're going to stretch the muscles on the inside, our groin muscles, and all we do here is lean our weight on one leg and let the other leg straight, and you should feel the stretch on the inside of the thigh. Once again, we would hold this for our 10 to 30 seconds, and then we would change to the other side. And we are ready for our finale, our last stretch. And I'll get you to move on to the step here, Tish. Once again, steadying yourself. And this is targeting the calf muscles, right down low. If you place 1 foot, the toes of 1 foot on the edge of the step, and all you're going to do is with a straight leg is allow your heel to go towards the ground. Where you should feel this stretch is right in this calf region here. Now that particular, there's actually 2 muscles within the calf, and this one targets the one called the gastrocnemius. The other muscle is the soleus, and the way we stretch that is by taking a bend in the knee, that's correct, and you should feel the stretch shift down from the upper part of the calf down to the lower region. And there you have it. So what we've gone through is a series of stretches that you can perform. You can see they don't require a lot of time, and as I indicated at the start, you don't need to be doing these following an exhaustive warm-up. So even if you have a few moments during the day just to capture some of these stretches, it can go a long way to promoting muscular relaxation and easing a lot of muscle tension. Many people find that they have tightness and stiffness in particular parts of the body, and so you can select those exercises that I've demonstrated and perform them in isolation. It's not necessary to go through the whole routine. Good luck.